pure frustration. Oh, who did that? Right, I'll start again for the recording. Anyone that knows Rich can relate to the fact that WESH UK was started out of his pure frustration. Back in the late 1990s, when he was building websites for local businesses, he built up a portfolio of about 50 clients and proceeded to spend more time moving them from one host to another than he did actually working on the websites. He found that the hosting was slow, oversold, and highly restrictive. And we all know what the offshore support experience feels like. So he knew that he could do a better job, and in 2000, WESH UK was born. Some things you don't know about Rich: he grew up in Balham. He's been in front of the judge 3 times. I'm not sure if it's the same one, and there's no more details supplied. And apparently his toothpaste is responsible for whitening his beard. So without any further ado, over to the man himself, Richard Wraith.
Hello, everyone. Right, so yeah, unfortunately my toothpaste is whitening my beard more than my teeth. So this is not grey hair. So what I want to talk to you about today is domain names. Something very simple that 99% of the population don't understand. And marketing people never mention. If you ever go and have a session with anyone in marketing and they talk to you about all the wonderful things like getting your business mentioned here and there and everywhere, when it comes to your website and online presence, your domain name or the topic of your domain name never comes up. Most marketing people will take what you've already got and then try to work out how to promote that, rather than saying, you can't polish this turd, let's create a nice cake instead. Sometimes you do need to, if you buy an old house that's in bad shape, are you going to waste 100 grand fixing it up, or are you going to knock it down and build a new one for 90? It's that sort of scenario. And I've done this a few times with people. And when I take on, for example, people's SEO, one of the first conversations I'll have with them after I've done God knows how much hours of research is, we need to scrap your domain name and start again. And 99% of clients will say, no, not doing that, just get on with what you got. But it's one conversation that's quite important. I've had the same conversation with Zenat. I did mention it briefly to Mark, but once he threatened me, I said, okay, fair enough. I've seen your boxing bag, mate. If you say fine, that's fine. But it's a topic that no one ever touches on. And one of the things I want to show you today is that if you get the right domain name, you can hit the top of Google search results with 0 effort. And the right domain name costs what? A tenner? Less than a tenner? If you get the wrong domain name, you're going to waste thousands and thousands of pounds trying to promote it. And the only way I can think of wording it really is having a domain name strategy. There's 2 sides to it. One is having the right domain name, and the second part to it is having the right amount of domain names. Because what I'm going to show you as well is a very famous, a well-known recycling company in Kent failed to purchase the .com version of their domain name. And one of their competitors picked up on that and they grabbed it. So they're losing 50% of their customers to a competitor. But in terms of buying a domain name strategy-wise, let me just share, where's this share button? This one. Cool. So what I want to share with you now is, so can you all see that? I can only see a few faces now, so yeah. Cool. So this is Google search results. If, for example, you were to search Google for reseller hosting London, and I've mentioned this a few times in previous meetings, you'll find that the first #1 result is resellerhostinglondon.co.uk. And that website was set up by me in 2014. And it's not really a website. It's dreadful. This thing's getting in the way. How do I move this Zoom thing out of the way? It's in the way of the top.
Click on it and drag it to the side. Click on the top and drag it to the side.
I'm not a Zoom expert. Awesome. Cool. Right, so if you go to there, that is the website. It's awful, and it's deliberately awful on purpose. It's just a couple of paragraphs and some bullet points and our branding on it. And the only reason it's got our branding on it is so I can prove to people it's ours. And that's been on the first page, #1 slot of Google search results since about 6 months after I set it up. And it hasn't moved since. And you can see it's going up against some of the big names like LC Host, all sorts, Crystal, and some of the other big names that pick away. They're all up there, but this is the #1 result. And I've spent no money on that, nothing. I bought the domain name, set up WordPress, sat and wrote some content one evening and let it be. And it's been at the #1 slot for what, 7, 8 years now without moving. So if you get the right domain name, you'll reduce the amount of expenditure you'll have to put into your domain name dramatically, or into your marketing, because you can spend thousands and thousands paying for it. I mean, you can rank any domain name for anything you want, but only if you've got very deep pockets. You know, not everyone is Nike or B&Q or some of the other household brands that you all know of. Not everyone's got those deep pockets. So if you want to get up on the first page of Google, changing your domain name is a very critical first step. I had this conversation with Zenat as well, because when you think about your business in terms of what people are looking for online, people don't know you yet. They have no idea who you are. All they're searching for, as Tony mentioned previously, they're searching for the answer to their problem. They're looking for the sizzle. They're not looking for people by name or by company name. And most people, and I say most people, almost everybody, they just register the name of their business. They call their business whatever they like, and then they buy that domain name, and then that's it, and off they go. And one of the things that no one else does is takes into account that how many websites they have. So most people just have one website, and maybe the .com or the .co.uk, and off they go, and they don't do anything else. So the two ways you can market your website with using the right domain names is you can either buy the right domain name the first time round and build your website on that, and it will rank really well naturally with very, very little effort. Or you can do what some of the big brands do, because it costs next to nothing, is to buy your primary domain name. Let's say it's your company name, like Babel Monkey, for example. When people are searching online, they're not searching for monkeys or Babel or bagels. They're not even close. They might find a bagel monkey, but they're probably not going to find what they're looking for, being the end result. So if you do set up your primary website as your company name, it's important that that is your umbrella website, under which you put multiple other websites targeting each of your products and services. And this is something no one never seems to discuss. So you would have so like take us for example. So we've got WESH UK as our primary website because people expect to find us at that domain name. But that's just one of 15 websites. You know, we've got 15 websites out there promoting different things that we do, and they target just that one thing. That one problem that people need to solve, that website targets that and only that, nothing else. There's no mention of servers, shared hosting, tech support, nothing. So our domain strategy, if you like, is that we have one umbrella website and then lots of other websites around it, all reaching out to people with problems that they're looking for. But if you haven't got the sort of budget or the time, because God forbid it is time consuming to do that, then I would advise anyone, if they're starting to look at their marketing, look at what people, look at what you want to be found for. And that's the sort of domain name you need to be buying. The prime example, if you go to B&Q's website, their website is not bnq.com. Their website is one of the #1 search things. Someone say it for me. It's one of the top things that people look for online is DIY. Now I've got a DIY community online as well. So when people are looking for DIY forums, my DIY, I need new medication. The DIY forums that I run as a community also rank on the first page of Google, because they've got DIY and the word forums in the domain name. So they come right up there on the first page of Google, and that's a nice little money earner from all the advertising revenue for me to do nothing. So I cannot stress enough the importance of getting a correct domain name. And one of the ways you can do that, it's all well and good me saying you've got to get a correct domain name. The other thing you need to know is how to do it. So this is the Google Trends tool. It's free and it's open to everyone. There's no login required. You just go to trends.google.co.uk or .com, and you can compare 5 different search terms at a time. So, for example, one of the examples I picked out was Lillian's website as an example of buying a domain name the way most people do it. So when you go to Lillian's website, it's Teratai. If you ask most people in the street, what's Teratai? You'll probably get a few head scratches and a few funny looks, and only the real gardeners and pond people would know what it is. It's actually a term for water lily, so it's a plant. And that is one of the reasons why, if you search for Teratai, I don't even know I'm saying it right, so Lillian, correct me if you want. If you search for Teratai and see how popular it is, it's maintained a steady interest, but in none of the countries where she's plying her trade. So if you do buy a domain name of teratai.co.uk, you should probably be selling pond plants in Asia somewhere on that domain name, because you'll do really well. But if you're selling virtual assistant services on a domain name like that, it's going to mean that your marketing is going to be so much harder to do. You're going to make life so much more expensive and more difficult. You're going to have to work around having that domain name, because Google Trends will show you how much interest there is in that name and where it's coming from and related topics. So if you are looking for, social media manager, Bromley, for example, and you put that in here, it will show you what countries have the most interest and where those, what are the related queries to use. So when you're trying to think, social media manager in Bromley's taken, you can actually start to use the Google Trends related queries to make sure that you're trying to give you some ideas. Because quite often you sit there scratching and going, well, I don't know, I'm out of ideas then, what do I do? But Google will actually offer you some options and say, hey, look, that word you're looking for, here's some related stuff that people are actually searching for, and they'll tell you how popular it's becoming. So you know if it's worth investing in that domain name. I've been through this with Loretta as well. Loretta can testify to this. I give people a domain consultation, and that can last anywhere from an hour to 3 hours, just going through this and all the different ideas and the different searches and the different terms. It can take a few hours, and that's just the starting point. So after that domain consultation, I don't normally hear from people for about 2 to 3 months, because they go off with their head full of things that are now going to make their eyes pop out, and a lot of homework to do. And typically, it does take about 2 to 3 months of trying to find all this stuff to work out what's a good one to buy. So for example, reseller hosting has had a steady up and down over the years, and it's pretty popular all over the world. And then you can use other search terms to find, what sort of pages, what sort of content should I be putting into that website to see what people are doing. So that's just a small percentage of the correct way to buy a domain name. In that terms, that's the first part of it. In terms of either you're going to have the right domain name in a one website strategy, or you're going to buy your company domain name and have a multi-website strategy. That's just one of the tools available to buy domain names or to find names that are available. The other part of buying a domain name is, if I was to say to you guys, how many different types of extension have you guys bought for your domain name? So you've all got, say, for example, a .co.uk or a .com, right? Yeah, no? Not seeing any heads, yeah? Yeah, so most people buy a .com and probably a .co.uk, and that's it. And if you forget and you don't get all of them, this website, for example, Kent House Clearance. I currently had a domain consultation with a chap, and he's setting up a chap called Ashby Clearance, and he's trying to buy a domain name, and we had literally 3 hours on the phone and remote desktop going over all the different domain names he could buy. And I showed him what happens. We was looking at some of his competitors, and if you look at Kent House Clearance, And one of his questions was, well, why do I have to buy all the other domain names? Why do I need a .com and a .net? So I said, well, what happens if you put in to Google or to any browser of your choice, KentHouseClearance.com? What happens is you get taken to Clutter King. They've obviously seen that he didn't have the .com, bought it, put a website on it, and nicked half his traffic. So now they're profiteering off of his I don't want to say tight-fistedness. Probably is just lack of knowledge. He might have looked at it and thought, well, I don't need all those domain names. I just need the .co.uk. So he wasn't aware of the potential to lose business if he didn't protect his brand. And that's another side of it as well. If you've only got a .co.uk and a .com, what happens if someone buys a .net or .biz and something else? So if you do want to have a domain consultation and find out actually, how can I grow my brand properly so that it ranks well online? And how can I stop my competitors from stealing and profiteering from my brand and all the time and effort I spend on it? Then by all means, I'd love to have a domain consultation with any of you. I'd love to talk about domain names all day and night. It's one of the few things I'll actually get out of bed for.
Rich, you've got 2 minutes left.
Oh, really? Wow, I thought I've been talking for half an hour. That's pretty much it, really. I mean, when you're buying a domain name, you can look on our website for domain names. So if you go to my.wesh.uk, you'll see the domain name search box there, and you can search for anything you want. So if you were to search for manager bromley.co.uk, what's the chance that this is probably taken? Some smart aleck has surely registered this already. Holy crap, no, they haven't. There you go. So if you were actually a social media manager in Bromley and you wanted to be found for that search term, for £6.50, build a web page on it and you'll get found. It is stupidly that simple. There's no magic to it. There's no black hat SEO techniques. There's nothing dodgy going on. It's just literally your domain name is one of the 200 ranking factors that Google looks at when it's trying to work out if it should rank you and how and where you should come. And your domain name is one of the biggest stumbling blocks that you can trip a search engine over from, because they will look, is the search term part of the domain name? And if not, it's okay, we'll rank the other websites that do have those features in the domain name. I mean, one of the things I'm doing with Mark Brown, when you do this, you've got to do your research. And a lot of people put about 10 minutes into their research to buy a domain name. And one of the things that one of the things we've identified with Mark is that actually there's a record company called SMB Records. It's a record label. And a possible business opportunity there is that actually he could offer vinyl storage for people looking to store their records somewhere, their actual vinyl records, because those things are getting worth a few quid now, right? They're starting to become collector's items. So there's a good business opportunity there to offer a storage facility for vinyl records. But it's also another reason why your bounce rate might be quite high. So when I started working on Mark's website, his bounce rate was sort of 85%.
Oh.
And now, I know, Sarah's face says it all. And now it's under 70. For the first time, well, as Mark says, for the first time ever, it's under 70%. And that's going to keep coming down. But there will always be a natural amount of people who are finding it for the wrong reasons because of the domain name. And some people have a lot of kickback against this, and some people are like, no, I'd rather keep it the same because that's what everyone knows. And that's fine. If you want to keep it the same, then it's worth considering having external websites that do target the services that you do as part of that plan. But this is one of the things I follow a lot of marketing people online. And in 20 years, I've never heard any of them make any mention of this. And yet it's something so obvious. And that's why I set up the other websites that I did, to prove them wrong, that you don't need to spend thousands and it can be done and it's simple. So Mark's probably going to say, right, Rich, you're fired. I'm just going to buy a domain name. But no, that's it. If you've got any questions about domain names and how to purchase the right one, what ones to get, and how to avoid existing brands being profiteered from your competitors, then by all means, just let me know. I've got plenty of free coffee here, and we can have a chat about it.
Thank you very much, Rich, and you've got plenty of chairs for people to sit on behind you as well. So
yeah,
thank you very much, and a round of applause for